Hi everyone, it's Kelly from Kelly's Bead Boutique. So I want to thank everybody that have reached out in the last little bit. If you follow me on social media, you'll know that over the Christmas holiday season, we lost a very important member of our family, my daughter's mother-in-law. She was taken from us very quickly, and it was a horrible, horrible time for the entire family. My son-in-law is an only child, and he had lost his father just a few years ago at the same time of year. So Christmas has always been a really tough time for him, and now to lose his mother on New Year's Day has just been, it's been gut-wrenching. So of course there's been lots of upheaval, lots of sadness, lots of changes. Georgie not only imparted all of her years of teaching wisdom onto the girls, but she was also their main caregiver. She was the one that picked them up and drove them to all their things and daycares and high schools and all that sort of stuff. And so everybody's trying to scramble and figure out how we're going to deal with things moving forward. So it's been a little complex, a little confusing, and an extremely sad time. Now, Georgie wouldn't want us to all sit and be melodramatic and all that sort of stuff. She was a really lovely lady, but you know, we have to take the time to grieve. So that's what I was doing, was taking a little bit of time just to kind of get through all of this and be there for my daughter and my grandchildren and my son-in-law, and just, you know, spend some time remembering Georgie and what a lovely lady she was. Damn, I'm gonna miss her pies at all of our family functions. I know that sounds so silly, but that's one of the things that I looked forward to, was getting together with our tiny little family, and at the end of it, knowing I was going to get to eat one of her absolutely scrumptious pies. Oh my gosh, like literally the best pie maker ever. So, there's little things that we remember about people, and because I like to eat, that's one of the things that I remember. So we all miss her terribly, and I just thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the beautiful wishes well wishes that I've received from everybody. I've had so many private messages and emails, and people just giving me their condolences and sending me lots of love, and I really do appreciate it. I have the best viewers and best customers, and I thank you all so much for your support all the time. Sorry, I'm always crying in my videos when I do these personal ones, because it's always something that comes up like this, right? So I haven't been able to film a video because of everything that was going on. And then all of a sudden I started to feel pretty sick, and I also suffer from fibromyalgia, and it often presents itself like the flu. So I never know if I've got the flu or if it's just a fibro flare-up. So I kind of tolerated it for a few days, and then I thought, okay, I think this is something a little bit more, and then it hit me like a ton of bricks. So I think I have that nasty thing that everybody's been trying to avoid for the last 2 years. And although I am vaccinated, triple vaxxed, it still got me, as it's getting everybody in Vancouver. So unfortunately, I haven't been able to go out and get tested because they're so overrun with cases right now that there's no room to even test. So they're just telling people that you probably do have it, because almost everybody I know has had it, and just to stay home and isolate. So that's what I'm doing. But that also means that I can't get to the store and grab some stuff to make any new videos. So I did want to put out something today. So I thought what I'd do is I would put together 5 of my favorite tips for making really good jewelry. So I have just taken those little snippets out of videos and just actually put in the tips. I'm not making you watch the entire videos, just little tiny things that'll make you go, oh, that's a cool idea. I like that. So I hope that you enjoy that, something a little different. And I promise I am going to try to get back to recording really soon. I'm hoping to get to the store this weekend to grab some supplies and start getting creative. So again, thank you very much for all your beautiful letters and notes and emails. They really have touched me, and I have read each and every one of you. I haven't responded to everybody because there's been so many, but just know that I have read every single one, and they've all, really touched me, and I thank you so much for that. So I hope you enjoy this video today. If you do, make sure that you like and that you comment, and if you haven't, make sure that you subscribe to my channel. I don't always sit in front of the camera and cry, just today. But so I hope that you enjoy this video, and I'm going to get back to filming just as soon as I can. Go off and have a wonderful day, and we will see you on the next one. All right, so now I want to put on my little end caps, and these just fit perfectly. But what I want to do is I want to dry fit them. because sometimes what happens when we cut this chain, it might blunt end a little bit. Like on this one, it's got just a little bit of a blunt end. So when I go to put this in there, it doesn't want to go. So I'm going to take my cutters and on just a little bit of an angle, I'm going to give that a trim. So always cover the end, give that a little bit of a trim. And I didn't cut off much, I just cut off the corner of it. And now this should slip on there quite nicely. There we go. So always give your ends just a little bit of a dry fit before you start putting your glue on. So now I'm going to take a little bit of Loctite glue. And I like this one because it's a gel and it works really, really well. So I'm just going to plop a little bit on the end. I guess plop is being my technical term today. You know how I like to come up with good words like that. So I would keep a little bit of paper towel around or something like that. And of course, you know, I never have anything that I need when I'm filming because that would require some thinking in advance. So I don't have any today. So we're going to hope for the best. So I put a little bit of glue on there and I'm going to dry fit that. So now I can see a little bit of extra there. So I'm just going to use my finger and I'm going to pay for that later because I'm going to have glue all over my hands. But that's what we're going to do is just glue both of these ends on. All right, so you want to make sure that you leave these to dry for a couple hours before you go on to this next step. You will find that this glue does take a little bit longer to set up, but it is nice and strong once it does set up. Okay, so right now I'm going to take one of my crimps and I'm going to run that on the end, and then I'm going to bring the very end back through. Now I want to be mindful of where that end is going. I don't want to have it twist over like that. So what I do is I grab hold of the end so that I can keep control of it, and then I pull that up. So I want to make sure that I'm leaving enough on the end here. I want to leave about 1/4 of an inch or so, and I have to leave enough to be able to put my crimp cover on there. So I'm not going to leave a big loop, but it's not going to be a super small one. So now when you're using these crimp pliers, they have 2 holes in them. We're going to start with the innermost one, which kind of looks a little bit like a taco, and then we've got the other one that looks like an oval. So I'm going to take the innermost one and put it right over top, and you can see that I'm still holding on to that so that I know that these have not crossed over. I want to make sure that my entire crimp is covered up. If you only get part of it in there, you're going to have a crimp that fails. So right before I crimp, I sort of separate them so that I know that these are going to create that little parallel channel in there, and I give it a good scrunch. Scrunch is my technical term. And now I'm going to take those off, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees, and I'm going to use the outer one and give it a really good solid smush down there. So then I'm going to come in with my pliers and give that one more little crimp on the same side. If you go on top, then it's going to open it back up. So you want to make sure you're just kind of staying where you were and give it another good squish. Now you can come in with your cutters and you can run your cutter down there so you can get it nice and close, and you can trim. Now I know that will make a lot of people afraid, but if you have done your crimping properly, that will not come apart. So don't leave one of those little tails because they just get in the way and they niggle in the back of your neck and they're just kind of pointless. So that's how you do a good crimp. So now we want to put on one of our crimp covers. So I like to sort of start with it in my fingers and get it lined up. And I want to have that crimp right inside there. So you can just see that it's tucked inside nice and neat. Okay, now that I've got that seated nice inside there, I'm going to come in on the sides and I'm going to give that a little push towards each other. So it takes a little bit of work. Now you can see that I didn't do it in one big massive push. I gave it just a little bit of push until it sort of started to close up. And now you can see that I'm left with a little bit of a gap there, and that's exactly what I want. These will never line up. If you just give it one big crimp like that, it's going to end up being sort of flat. So I get it to the point where it's leaving that little bit of a gap, and then I'm going to come on top and I'm going to give it a little tiny baby squish. So sometimes it goes where you don't want it to go, so you have to be the boss of it. So I'm going to give it a little squish that way, and then I come in on the other side. And I just keep going back and forth until I get something that I like. Now it will flatten them out a little bit, but I find if you do it on both sides, you can't really notice. And there we go. We have a nice little crimp cover. So I think that's the best way to approach it, is try not to do it in one great big huge massive push. Just do little tiny bites and try to keep it in the round as much as you can. So now I'm going to turn it around while I'm working on this, and you're probably thinking, well, why is she turning it around? Well, one, because you wear it this way. So I want to make sure that when I'm working on it in the right direction. So we're going to have our, if you're right-handed, I always think it's a good idea to put your lobster clasp in the right side, and if you're left-handed, you're going to swap it around. So that's the way that I make sure that I've got my lobster clasp or my whatever clasp I'm using on the right side. So now to finish these off, there's many ways that you can finish off ball chain, but most people use that sort of classic little connector that just kind of connects them up, and then you can't undo this necklace at all. And I just don't like them. I think they look really cheap. And so what I like to use are these bead tips. But most bead tips are formed in a way that they open from the bottom and the top, so there's no way to get them around these chains. Well, this one is kind of unique in that it opens from the side, and it's really hard to show you, but hopefully you can see that in my hands, in that it opens up on the side. So all you have to do is place that inside the top length there and then close it up. Isn't that just brilliant? So now you've got your ball chain completely encapsulated inside an ending, and it looks fabulous. I just love these. So there are other ways of doing it, but I find this to be the easiest, and I'm not even using tools. I just put them in the end and close up. Now what you want to make sure, and I can see this one's off just a little tiny bit, and I'm going to take my pliers just a bit. I'm not really pushing a lot. I just want to make sure that those two loops on either side are completely across from each other. Otherwise, we're going to have a heck of a time trying to get these jump rings through. Now is I'm going to tie a surgeon's knot. So you go to tie a regular knot, and then you bring this back through one more time. So it's like you're wrapping it around 3 times. And now I'm going to pull it pretty tight. You want to get that in there really nice and snug. And now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to bring that around, bring it around once. Oops, that didn't go. Bring it around once, and then bring it around twice, and then pull tight. And now see how I've got this pulled in between my fingers? That's going to give it some tension, which is what you need to get this knot to go in there. So I'm going to pull my fingers out and pull real fast, just like that, really fast. So now I've got a nice strong knot in there, and I'm pulling pretty hard on this. I want that knot to stay in there. And I'm going to do one more for good measure because we're not going to see that knot. So that's going to be hidden underneath there. So again, I pull that down, get it nice and tight, and then boop, pop it in there. Really nice and tight. So now, if I pull this back, you can see that I've got a little sort of conglomeration of knots in there, and they're not going to go anywhere, but let's just make sure they're not going to go anywhere. So what I do is I just sort of pull it back, and I isolate that, and then I put a nice little blob of GS Hypo on there. And you can be fairly liberal because again, it is being hidden, so we don't have to worry about it looking unsightly, although this does dry clear. I'm going to let that dry, but I can, just for the sake of brevity on time here, I'm going to just trim that off. So you can give it a little snip, and a little snip there. Now we're just going to take that knot and we're going to tuck it right inside that tube and then close that up. And there.